Now you're going to learn about how to develop your chest and your triceps. You're going to get the best exercises that will accomplish that. My champions will take you step by step exactly how to use the double joint exercises, develop mass into your chest and into your triceps, and also the single joint exercises that will put shape, definition into the chest and into the triceps to fill out your arms and broaden your chest. Put them to work for you with enthusiasm and with belief that you're going to accomplish this.
One of the functions of the chest muscle is to pull the arm across the body so that the shoulder extends forward and you have the opposition in the back muscle. Now the pectoral muscle is unique in that it attaches with a single attachment at the shoulder, but then has several different attachments along the interior of the rib cage. So what we need to do is develop a unique formulation for developing all the different angles of the chest. Since the ideal angles for any body part to be worked from are when the origin and insertion are in line, we're going to have to develop a full spectrum of different angles to be able to work the chest effectively. Because of the number of attachments up and down the middle of the chest has to be worked from inclined positions, flat positions, and declined positions in order to achieve a full and even development.
The pectoralis major is a thick fan-shaped muscle with an extensive origin from the center of the clavicle, the sternum, and as far down as the 6th or 7th rib, and which inserts into the humerus. It flexes, abducts, and rotates the arm and the shoulder medially.
The basic mass and strength building movements for the chest are all some sort of press, where the weight is pushed away from the body by using the pecs, the front delts, and the triceps. The basic mistake we often see in the gym when it comes to training chest is that there's too much pressing of the arms and not enough work from the pecs themselves. To properly develop the chest, the shoulders have to go forward from a backward shrug position to where the pecs are squeezed to the point of full contraction. If the shoulders don't go forward, then the pecs aren't worked directly.
The flat barbell bench press has always been one of the most popular of upper body exercises because it not only develops the pectoral muscles, but the triceps and the front deltoids as well. However, because so many different muscles are involved, when you do bench presses, be sure to use a wide enough grip to bring the pectorals fully into play. A narrow grip forces the triceps to do a disproportionate amount of the work, as we'll see later. Bring the bar down deliberately and under full control. The negative or eccentric part of the rep is as important as the concentric or positive lifting part of the movement. Lower the bar to the middle of the chest, not too far up toward the neck. Stop, then press it back up to full lockout position, feeling the shoulders pressing forward and the chest muscles contracting. If you lift just with your arms with this exercise, you'll never get the kind of chest development you're looking for. Bringing the bar to a full stop at the bottom is important. When you bounce the weight off your chest, you risk injury and take away from the difficulty of the exercise. So if you want full intensity from the bench press, lower the bar to the chest and come to a full stop before pressing it up again.
When you're doing the bench press, be sure to control the bar, the speed at which it comes up and down, and how far down you're going. You don't want that bar to push your body backward to where your chest is being overexpanded and your arms are being pushed to the sides and you're feeling this tearing sensation in the pec deck area.
You see a lot of guys bench pressing. They just bounce the weight and jerk it back up. Always keep it smooth. That downward motion is just as important as pushing it up. It's just as important because it stresses strength and muscular definition in the muscle.
Dumbbell presses have the advantage of allowing each side of the body to work independently, so that both pecs are forced to work at full intensity. Pressing with dumbbells enables the stabilizer muscles around the shoulder to become stronger as well. However, it's more difficult to balance and control dumbbells than it is a barbell, so you need to concentrate on lifting smoothly, deliberately, and under full control at all times. When you press the dumbbells, don't press them directly straight up and down, which involves too much triceps and not enough chest. Instead, lift and lower them in a slight arc, with the dumbbells moving outward on the way down and coming back in toward one another on the way up. Not as much as with a flying exercise, but somewhat of the same movement. This gives you a fuller and more complete contraction of the chest muscles than can generally be achieved when your hands are locked in place holding onto a barbell. Dips are actually a form of decline press and develop the lower part of the pectoral muscles as would a decline barbell or dumbbell press. However, decline presses tend to be more effective as a mass and strength exercise, while dips are more of a full-range detail and definition movement. Doing dips, the further forward you lean, the more you're going to involve the pectorals. When you do dips with your body in a more straight up and down position, as demonstrated here, for example, you tend to work more triceps than chest, which is a good arm exercise but not very beneficial to pectoral development. With dips, the lower you go, the more intense the movement, but never drop down so low that you overstretch the muscles, tendons, and ligaments involved and increase your risk of injury. Doing a barbell bench press on an incline changes the angle of effort of the pectorals and puts greater stress on the upper area of the chest. Incline presses are done exactly like flat bench barbell presses, except for two things. One, when you press on an incline, you generally can't lift as much weight as you can doing a flat bench press, so you'll have to adjust the weight accordingly. And two, you'll find it a little more difficult to balance and control the bar working at this angle, which means you need to concentrate even harder on using proper technique. So be sure to bring the bar down slowly and under full control, and come to a complete stop at the bottom before pressing the bar back up to the starting position. Incline dumbbell presses are another mass and strength exercise for the upper pectorals. As with the incline barbell presses, you'll need to do the movement with somewhat less weight than you would on a flat bench, and controlling and balancing the weight requires total concentration. As with flat dumbbell presses, don't press the weight too straight up and down with a lot of triceps effort. Make sure the dumbbells move in a slight arc to help take the arms out of the exercise and make the pectorals do as much of the work as possible.
The basic isolation exercise for chest is going to be a fly type of movement. Now, a fly type movement is going to bring the arm across the body in an arc, basically it's going to be working with one joint. The shoulder joint is going to be rotating. It's important on fly type movements to keep the arms slightly bent and locked in position, and basically the arm is going to be moving at an arc, allowing for a stretch, and the contraction point is going to be bringing the weight up to the top and squeezing the pectoral muscle. A common mistake that a lot of bodybuilders make when they're doing flying type exercises is trying to go too heavy. Now, flies for the most part are generally an isolation exercise and not really a mass building exercise. In fact, I've seen a lot of world champion bodybuilders go into the gym and just use like a 25 or 30 pound dumbbell and really isolate the muscle and learn how to feel the muscle effectively. One of the things that can happen when you do a fly too heavy is that you can strain or tear a pec insertion or a bicep muscle. So you want to be really careful to isolate the muscle and really learn how to feel it.
The best way to describe a pectoral fly movement is as a big hug. You hold the weight overhead, palms facing inward, you bend your arms slightly, and then try to keep your elbows at about this same angle throughout the exercise. You don't want a lot of bending and straightening of the arms, which involves triceps effort. Instead, you want to lower the weights in a wide arc, feeling the chest muscles stretch, and then bring them up in the same arc, squeezing the pecs together as if you're giving somebody a big bear hug. As with dumbbell presses, you can do dumbbell flies on a flat, an incline, or decline bench, depending on whether you want to focus your training on the middle, upper, or lower area of the pectorals. Remember, flies are an isolation exercise, not one designed primarily for building strength and mass. So keep your weights moderate and develop the intensity you need by very strict technique. Full range of motion, focus and concentration, keeping the mind in the muscle, and training to momentary muscular failure in each set.
When you're doing chest flies off the bench, make sure you don't go beyond that 180-degree angle. Don't go down even further, because what you begin to do is tear and stretch the tissue in the muscle joint at the pec deck area. This can contribute to creating stretch marks on your body, as well as damaging that joint ligament system.
Many people ask me, is there a difference between the way I train and between a man's training? And I say, yeah, of course. Very few men I know can bench press 315 pounds.
After rowing exercises, cable crossovers are probably the movement most often done incorrectly in the gym. Bodybuilders frequently make the mistake of bending and straightening their arms during the movement, which takes away from the isolation of the pectorals. They also bring the arms down too much toward their sides, which allows the lats to come into play. Instead, when you do crossovers, you want to feel the chest stretch and contract just as it does with the dumbbell flies. So you need to develop the same hugging movement with your shoulders shrugging all the way back, then coming together in the front to create maximum chest contraction. You work the upper, lower, or middle of the chest with this exercise, depending on how far you bend forward and at what angle you bring your hands together. You can choose the angle that suits you best. But be sure not to drop your elbows too far down toward your sides, so that your lats become involved in this exercise. So isolate the pecs as much as possible and keep muscles like the lats and triceps out of this exercise. The pec deck allows you to perform a kind of machine flying movement. When you train your chest using a pec deck, you're able to work with very strict isolation as well as through a very long range of motion. So this is a great exercise for achieving the maximum of muscular detail and definition. Therefore, to get the most from this machine, you should use a pec deck primarily for lower stress, lighter weight, and higher rep training. Instead of heavy resistance, concentrate on strict technique. Stretch as far back as you can without discomfort. Then bring your arms together and squeeze the pecs at the top of the movement to achieve a maximum peak contraction. Not using too much weight is very important. Adding too many plates to the stack when you train on a pec deck simply puts too much stress on the shoulder joint and the muscles involved and really doesn't give you any added benefit in return. Chest routine number 1. Barbell bench press. 4 sets of 10 reps. Incline dumbbell press. 4 sets of 10 reps. Flat or incline dumbbell flies. 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps. Cable crossovers. 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps. Chest routine number 2. Incline barbell press. 4 sets of 10 reps. Flat bench dumbbell press. 4 sets of 10 reps. Dips. 4 sets of 10 reps. Pec deck flies. 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps.
The function of the triceps is simply to strengthen the arm. The triceps are a free-head muscle lying at the back of the upper arm that originate at the shoulder and insert in the forearm below the elbow and work in opposition to the biceps.
The triceps brachii is a 3-head muscle that is situated on the dorsal aspect of the upper arm. It extends the forearm. The long head of the triceps extends and abducts the arm.
Pronation plays an important part in triceps exercise routines. Just as the biceps movement twists the wrist in one direction, that's called supination, the triceps movement twists the arm in the other direction, or pronation. Now, this twisting movement should be included in at least one exercise in your triceps routine. Training the long head of the triceps is also an important part of the routine. The long head's fully extended when you're in a position with your elbow raised. You can feel the increase in tension down the back of the arm. Therefore, you need to do at least one exercise in your triceps routine that works the arm in this position.
As we learned earlier, how a barbell press affects your muscles depends a lot on how you hold the bar. Hold it with a wide grip and the pectorals do most of the work. Holding the bar with a close grip, on the other hand, forces the arms to work through a much longer range of motion while the length of the chest contraction is shortened. This turns the press into a triceps rather than a pectoral exercise. Along with dips done with the body in an upright position, close grip barbell presses are a primary mass and strength building exercise for developing the triceps. Using a Smith machine has many of the advantages of training with a barbell without some of the disadvantages, which makes close grip presses on a Smith machine an attractive alternative for close grip barbell presses. For example, the fact that you don't have to balance and control the bar to the same degree allows you to keep your hands even closer together than when doing the exercise with a free weight, but you're still lifting against the force of gravity, which gives you the greatest response and adaptation from the muscles. So the result is the ability to achieve the maximum amount of isolation in your triceps training, along with the strongest contraction of the muscles. And these two elements add up to the utmost of intensity in your triceps training. Bench dips are a kind of a paradox, a pressing movement done with the isolation and strictness of an extension exercise. As with parallel bar dips, the lower you go in this movement, the more intensity you generate. As a matter of fact, bench dips tend to be very popular with women, many of whom lack the upper body strength to do parallel bar dips when they first start training. But you do need to exercise proper care with this movement. Never drop down so far that you risk overstretching the muscles, tendons, and ligaments and incurring an injury. Keep the movement smooth, steady, and under full control at all times. For maximum development of the triceps, try alternating bench dips with upright parallel bar dips in your individual arm training routine. What differentiates an extension movement from a press is that only the elbow joint is involved. Extensions don't involve the shoulder. The elbows are kept steady throughout the exercise, and the weight moves up and down in an arc, with the elbows as a fixed pivot point. Doing lying triceps extensions, also called a French press, most bodybuilders prefer using an easy curl bar, although you can use a straight bar and get excellent results as well. Whether you bring the bar down to your forehead or down past the top of your head is also largely a matter of personal preference and individual proportion. Just remember that with any extension movement, you should concentrate on feeling the triceps lengthen and stretch at the bottom of the movement, and you should experience a complete peak contraction, with the triceps fully contracted at the top. Strict technique and full range of motion are the keys to success with triceps extensions.
Work those triceps. Work for balance and symmetry throughout your body.
Well, beginners should always learn, first and foremost, how to do the exercise correctly.
I believe in basic exercises and I believe in a strict full movement. And I think the most important part of the training is to do the exercise very strict and over the full movement.
Standing triceps extensions are a variation of lying triceps extensions, and they are done basically the same way. One significant difference, however, is that doing extensions in this standing position, your elbows are positioned further back, which creates an even greater tension in the long head of the three-headed triceps muscle, forcing it to contract that much more intensely during the movement. An advantage of using dumbbells in many exercises is the ability to work each side of the body independently and with greater isolation, and this is particularly true of dumbbell triceps extensions. However, another advantage of doing extensions with dumbbells is lengthening range of motion. Notice that the weight is not lowered directly to the rear. Instead, it comes in behind the back of the head and down to the top of the spine until the triceps are fully stretched and extended. To achieve this range of motion safely, be sure to use a light enough weight for this movement so that you can really stretch the triceps as far as possible, because that's the key to getting the maximum benefit from this particular exercise. To make kickbacks an effective extension movement, remember what extension exercises are all about. Be sure to keep the elbow as steady as possible so that the weight moves forward and back in an arc, with the elbow as a fixed pivot point. Extend the weight. Don't lift it up and back with the shoulder. Triceps press downs are probably the most popular cable triceps exercise. Again, the key here is whether or not the elbows are used as fixed pivot points, or whether you let your shoulders become involved, whether you tend to bend forward from the waist during the movement to help push the weight. Both of these techniques turn the exercise into more of a press rather than an extension, which it's not supposed to be, in spite of its name. With dumbbell extensions, maximum intensity involves stretching the triceps as much as possible. With the cable press downs, the extension position is important, but what you should really concentrate on is a full and total contraction at the bottom of the movement. Lock your arms out, crunch the triceps muscles, and work to feel as strong a peak contraction as possible with every single rep. For maximum intensity doing cable triceps, the weight isn't as important as the burn. When you're working at the level of maximum effort, after a couple of sets, your triceps will feel like they're on fire because of heavy lactic acid buildup in the muscles. You'll find a variety of machines in most gyms you can use for triceps training. What they offer is strictness, isolation, and full range of motion. For maximum benefit, stay with lighter weights and higher repetition sets. Train for quality using triceps machines rather than mass, strength, or power. Triceps routine number 1. Close grip barbell press. 4 sets of 10 reps. One arm triceps extension. 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps. Table press downs. 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps. Triceps routine number 2. Bench dips. 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps. Barbell triceps extensions. 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps. Machine extensions. 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps.
Now that you know the best exercises to developing your chest and your triceps, put it to work for you. Give it all you got, and you'll be amazed within 30 days what you will accomplish. In the next tape, there's 30 of the best exercises my champions will show you how to develop broader and thicker shoulders, as well as how to strengthen and develop every single muscle in your legs.
You've got to want it from within, because we, sitting here, cannot go inside of your living room and say, you know, Jane, you got to get your butt off that couch and do something about it. You've got to want it from within.
Bodybuilding in general is a great overall form of physical education. I myself, as a professional, took me a long time to achieve what I wanted to achieve. I mean, not everybody who starts bodybuilding is going to be a professional. It's a very difficult sport, it takes a lot of time. But you can, through bodybuilding, change your body to what you specifically want it to be. If you want to be a pro, then you have to train like a pro. But if you want to look better, bodybuilding will do it.
Don't listen to other people. Just follow your heart. Just go for it. Do what you want to do.
You can achieve anything you want. You know, you just have to go for it.
You can start off just wanting to get in shape, but eventually, I'm telling you, it's a very addictive sport, and you will become more and more involved, and as you do that, the more progress you'll see and the more appreciation you'll have for top-notch bodybuilders.
Just remember that only the strong survive. So you have to stay strong, you have to train hard, go in the gym, train like there's no tomorrow, let absolutely nothing stop you from reaching your goal, and make every single rep count.
One of the main things that made me get a lot of intensity in the workout was that when I got to the gym, I wasn't a big person like a lot of people, and I wanted to be the strongest, no matter what. So my goal was, when I grab a weight, I immediately used all my concentration I could and do everything intense. And I developed that slowly, that my intensity came automatic as years went by. And I think that helped me to become stronger and really become a champion.
Bodybuilding can have a positive effect on anybody's life. It can help you lose weight and give you more confidence. Can change your physical appearance, which is good, you know, for you mentally. You know, it can be good for anybody.
When I first started powerlifting, I always wanted to bodybuild, but I didn't feel that I had the genetics for it. And as I started to train harder and harder and push myself farther, I started to see results. I said, hey, this can work.
I think that the definition that I would come up with for what quality workout techniques are is going in and spending the minimum amount of time in the gym possible and achieving the maximum amount of results possible.
Be with people who are confident. Be with people who are positive. Don't be with skeptics. Don't be with doubters. Be with people who say to you, this can work, this does work, this has worked, and will work for you.
Now is the time to incorporate your legs and shoulder exercises into your overall program. Our champions were going to show you and tell you exactly what are the best exercises to accomplish that.
quadriceps are a four-headed muscle, which is located in front of the thigh. It originates at the pelvis and attaches below the knee. The main function of the quadriceps are to straighten the leg.
The quadriceps femoris, four muscles on the anterior thigh, extend the leg. The sartorius, which passes obliquely across the anterior thigh, extends and flexes the thigh.
The basic one-joint isolation movement for the quadricep involves the straightening of the lower leg, with the knee joint as the primary point of rotation. The leg straightens and extends without any involvement of the hip joint, glutes, or the hamstrings. The basic two-joint movement for quadriceps is the press. It involves both the knee joint area and the hip area as well. Leg exercises include leg press and various types of squats. Actually, the leg press exercise involves a lot of different muscles, affecting it to a different degree depending on where you are in your range of movement. In the upper part of the range of motion, down to the point where the knee is bent at about a 90-degree angle, the primary stress is on the quadricep. As you go lower than this, the knee bends even more. The stress shifts back to the hamstrings at the back of the leg. At the lowest position, the glutes end up doing most of the work.
Some bodybuilders have achieved the proportions which allow them to do heavy leg press and squat movements through a very long range of motion without damage to the knee. But for most of you, heavy quadriceps training should be done through a more limited range of motion. Go down only to the point where the knee is at a 90-degree angle. At this point, the thighs are parallel to the floor. The back of the leg can then be worked with different exercises like hack squats. Hack squats use the lower range of motion with much lighter weights to protect the knee.
Squats are the primary mass builder for the quadriceps muscles. For best results, stand with your feet wide enough apart for good balance, toes pointed forward, and when you do your squats, keep your head up and back straight. Try not to bend forward from the waist. As you bend your knees, go down only to about the point where your knees are at a 90-degree angle, thighs parallel to the floor. This is the range of motion in which the quadriceps work with the most intensity. Any lower, and you begin to work the back of the leg instead of the front of the thigh. At the bottom of the movement, come to a complete stop, then press back up again to the starting position. Don't bounce at the bottom or try to press upward before you come to a stop. Squats give you great results, but doing an exercise with a heavy barbell balanced across the back of your shoulders means you have to concentrate extra hard on strict technique, complete balance, and full control.
One of the exercises where we see a number of injuries is the squat, and the reason being is people forget that the head is the center of balance in their body. When they allow their head to tilt forward, it changes the spinal curvature all the way down, changes their pelvic angle, and changes the whole biomechanics of that particular lift. For instance, if I'm doing a squat and I tilt my head down, my ankles may have a tendency to invert or evert. If they invert, then what happens is my kneecaps may start to move towards each other, and that can cause a strain on the ligaments and cartilage in the inner knee. Now with my head tilting forward even more, my pelvis angle changes and I lose that proper lumbar lordotic curve, or that curve in my low back that keeps my back powerful and strong during the biomechanics of that lift. So what I've done with this simple change in head positioning, I bowling balled my head forward, changed the angle that my shoulders are so I'm not supporting the bar properly. My whole spinal curvature has changed, my pelvic angle has changed, my knees are now valgusing or going towards the center, and my ankles are starting to spin under me. This is injury in the making.
Doing squats on a Smith machine, you still get the sensation of training with a free weight. but the fact that the bar is controlled by the vertical track allows you to do a number of variations of the exercise. For example, you can vary your foot position. Putting your feet a little further forward for the exercise takes some of the stress off the knee joints. You can also position your feet somewhat closer together, which puts more emphasis on the quadriceps rather than muscles such as the hip flexors. Although advanced bodybuilders are great fans of Smith machine training, the fact that you don't have to control the bar as you do in barbell squats makes this a good exercise for beginners who may not yet have the strength or confidence to handle squats with free weights. For ultimate quadriceps isolation, try doing front squats using a Smith machine. Hold the bar across the front of your shoulders rather than behind and position your feet close together. This technique not only isolates and increases training intensity in the thigh muscles, it also takes a lot of stress off the back, which makes this a popular exercise for individuals who may be experiencing some sort of back problem.
You may consider using a weight belt when you're doing squats in order to stabilize a low back, especially if you have a weak low back area.
The leg press exercise uses the same basic two-joint movement as squats. However, since you're using a machine rather than trying to balance a weight across your shoulders, you can generally work more strictly with this exercise and with more weight as well. As with Smith machine squats, leg press machines allow you the option of varying your foot position quite a bit. Closer together, further forward, toes straight ahead, or turned outward. What position works best for you is generally a matter of personal preference and individual physical proportion. So try different positions to see which you like best. There are many different kinds of leg press machines. Incline as demonstrated here, vertical where you lie on your back and press upward, horizontal, and even standing leg press machines. Basically, they all do about the same thing. Which kind you prefer is largely a matter of individual preference. However, as a general rule, the closer the machine feels to training with a free weight, the better it will usually be for developing fundamental mass and strength.
I double my weight on a leg press than I do with the squat because it is more of a controlled movement. You don't have to worry about balancing. If you have a back problem, or lower back problem, or any knee problems that I do have, I usually find myself on the leg press more so than the squat rack now.
Leg extensions is one of the primary one-joint isolation exercises for the quadriceps. A basic function of the thigh muscles is simply to straighten the leg. That's what you do with leg extensions. The exercise is really nothing more than straightening the leg against the appropriate amount of resistance. However, to get the most out of this exercise, concentrate on achieving a full peak contraction at the top of the movement. When your legs are straight and quads fully contracted, give a little extra crunch to work the muscles to the maximum. And during the negative part of the movement, don't just let the weight drop back to the starting position. Resist on the way down. In fact, you should lower the weight noticeably slower than you lifted it.
To help get the separation into my quadriceps, I do a lot of extensions, leg extensions, and I make sure that I hold a peak at the top just to make sure you're squeezing everything at the top to get the separations and the cuts out in your legs, and a slower movement to let it down. So you're doing more so of a negative reaction on the down movement and blasting it out and holding that peak at the top.
Lunges involve standing with your feet together, taking a step forward, and then bending your knees so that the knee of the trailing leg comes to the floor or almost to the floor, and then pushing back up to the starting position. Some bodybuilders like doing a full set of repetitions with one leg, then repeating the exercise with the other leg. Others prefer alternating first one leg and then the other throughout the set. Either way works fine. It's mostly a matter of individual preference. You can do lunges holding a barbell across your shoulders or holding 2 dumbbells by your side, whichever you prefer. But what makes the biggest difference in how lunges affect your muscles is how long a step you take. The shorter the step, the more you isolate the quadriceps, as with a leg extension. The longer the step, the more you bring the back of the leg into play, the glutes and the hamstrings.
The hamstrings are a two-headed muscle which is located in the back of the leg and inserts below the knee. The main function of the hamstrings are to curl the leg.
The biceps femoris is a two-headed muscle situated on the posterior and lateral aspect of the thigh. It flexes the leg and rotates it laterally. The gluteal muscles, which form the buttocks, adduct, rotate, and extend the thigh. The hack squat is a leg press that emphasizes the lower range of motion, and it's one of the most important mass and strength builders for the hamstrings or leg biceps. The lower you go in a leg press type movement, the more the back of the leg is brought into play. So with hack squats, it's important to lower your body and bend your legs as much as possible so your rear end comes down and almost sits right on your heels. Of course, when your knees are bent to this degree, they are put under considerable stress, so it's important to use a light enough weight in this exercise so that you avoid undue wear and tear on the knee joints. To further protect the knees, keep the exercise as steady and controlled as possible. Come to the bottom of the movement, pause, don't bounce. Then straighten the legs and press back upward with a smooth, controlled motion. Your feet should be positioned far enough forward with your weight on your heels rather than on your toes, so that the quadriceps are further taken out of the exercise, and the stress of the movement is targeted as much as possible on the hamstrings. Incidentally, you can lock your legs out at the top of the exercise, but it really isn't essential. At that point, your quadriceps are doing all the work, and the hamstrings really aren't involved anymore.
One series of muscles that tends to cramp up quite a bit is the back of the leg, the biceps femoris and the hamstrings. Because what happens is somebody is doing a lot of leg curls, really trying to build up that muscle group, and they don't stretch or relax the muscle at the end or termination of the exercise. They sit down and all of a sudden that muscle cramps up and they end up with a nice ball on the back of their leg. Very painful and will be very quick to put somebody on the floor.
The leg curl is a very effective one-joint isolation exercise for the leg biceps. A primary function of the hamstrings is to curl the leg, and that's exactly what you do with a leg curl exercise. Since this is an isolation rather than a power exercise, concentrate on smooth, continuous repetitions and strict technique rather than trying to lift heavy weight. At the top of the movement, try to achieve the maximum peak contraction of the hamstring muscles, and then lower the weight again, resisting all the way, and keeping it under total control all the way to full extension. Again, go for the burn, doing leg curls, the sensation that accompanies lactic acid buildup after a hard set, rather than trying to overpower the exercise. For further isolation and intensity, try doing leg curls one leg at a time on the appropriate type of machine, performing a full set of curls with one leg and then switching to the other leg and doing another full set without stopping to rest in between.
In the old days, they used to have these flat benches, and as you would flex or bend your legs towards you, your pelvis would tend to jump off of the top of the bench. And instead of training your back of your legs, you are now putting tension on your low back. Now they build banks or bend into these machines to keep your pelvis flush on the bench itself. So now the concentrated effort is going on the bicep femoris and the hamstrings, the back of your legs, versus being transferred to your low back.
Stiff leg deadlifts are an often misunderstood exercise. They are designed to work your hamstrings and glutes, not the lower back. So for best results, use a moderately light weight and keep your legs locked out straight. Bend slowly forward and lower the weight as far as possible, feeling the hamstrings stretching to the maximum. Pause at the bottom, feel the stretch, then come slowly back up. Not to a full standing position, but only until you feel the hamstrings begin to relax. You can do stiff leg deadlifts using a barbell, or you can hold on to a pair of dumbbells. In either case, you'll need to stand on a box or a bench so that you can bend forward as far as possible without having the weight hit the floor and limit your range of motion. Again, the key to this exercise is strictness, control, and good form. Keep it strict and you'll keep it safe.
You should consider wearing a weight belt when you're doing stiff leg deadlifts to take some of the pressure off the low back and stabilize it.
The glutes are involved in the movement of the thigh as well as keeping the body in an upright position. In terms of bodybuilding, it's best explained by example. Take a hold of something for support. Then squat all the way down to the ground, keeping your feet in a flat position. When your rear end is almost touching the floor, pause. Then, when you first begin to stand up, that very first movement, that's a direct action of the gluteus maximus.
The glutes are involved in a wide variety of different leg exercises. When you do squats or leg presses, you're working your glutes. When you do hack squats or long stride lunges, they come even more into play. However, you'll frequently see individuals in gyms, a majority of them usually women, doing various kinds of leg exercises with pulleys and cables and using exotic-looking machines in an effort to firm and tone their glutes. But these exercises are far less effective than the ones we've already illustrated, especially deep hack squats where your rear end comes down and just about sits on your heels or touches the floor. Remember, when you're doing a squat, leg press, or hack squat movement, the quads do most of the work in the upper range of motion, down to the point where your knee is bent at about 90 degrees. As you go lower, the hamstrings take over and bear the brunt of the effort. But it's the lowest part of the range of motion, where your knees are bent to the maximum and pressed right up against your chest, that the glutes are called upon to do the majority of the work. Leg routine number 1. Barbell squats. 4 sets of 8 to 10 reps. Incline leg press. 4 sets of 10 reps. Pec squats. 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps. Leg extensions. 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps. Leg curls. 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps.
For me, I do need to put more effort into my legs than other parts of my body. I get real lean in my upper body, where my lower body is just a little bit slower. It just likes to hold the muscle and maybe a little bit more fat compared to the other ratios in my body.
If I'm training my legs twice a week, I'll train them heavy the first time and then light the second time. This way I'm able to maintain the size that I have but shape what I have and make it more prettier. So the first day I would do my bulk exercises, which are the squat and the leg press. And on my lighter days I would do my shape exercises like my leg extensions and lunges.
Leg routine number 2. Smith machine squats. 4 sets of 10 reps. Machine leg press. 4 sets of 10 reps. Lunges. 4 sets of 12 to 15 reps each leg. One leg curls. 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps each leg. Stiff leg deadlifts. 4 sets of 10 reps.
In the beginning, back in 1986, Rich Gaspari came out with these impressive cut glutes that nobody else had. Now that's commonplace. People around the world, amateurs and professionals, are now getting these striated glutes. Renel Janvier and Andreas Munzer. It's very impressive if you have it.
When I'm trying to gain more size, I will cut my workouts down. So if I'm concentrating on size, I'll train my legs once a week. Whereas if I'm pre-contest, say, or if I'm trying to put more shape into the legs, then I'll train them twice a week.
When you start training, it's very important to train the legs from the beginning, because if the upper body gets more developed and the legs get behind it, it's very hard to catch up. And that's why I train the legs from the beginning and keep the body parts equal in shape from the beginning.
The function of the deltoid muscles of the shoulder is simply to lift the arm. The deltoids are a 3-headed muscle with 1 head located in the front, 1 at the side, and 1 at the rear. These 3 heads, in combination with the fact that the shoulder joint is the most mobile in the body, allow the deltoids to rotate the arms a full 360 degrees. Unfortunately, though it is the most mobile, the shoulder joint is the least stable. Therefore, shoulder training has to be done carefully to avoid injury.
The 3-head deltoid muscle covers the shoulder joint ventrally, dorsally, and laterally. It flexes, extends, and rotates the arm medially and laterally. The military press is the most traditional of shoulder exercises. Individuals have probably been lifting objects overhead to develop and demonstrate strength since the dawn of history or before. You can picture cavemen hefting logs and rocks overhead to show off their physical prowess. The exercise is simple. After cleaning the weight or taking it off a rack, press it upward from shoulder height to full extension overhead. Then lower it back to the starting position. One important variable is how wide you grip the bar. You need a wide enough grip to work the shoulders without too much participation on the part of the triceps. Too narrow a grip tends to involve too much triceps rather than concentrating fully on the shoulders. Lifting a weight overhead, balance and coordination are extremely important. Lift the bar smoothly and under full control. Never jerk or throw the weight around.
When you're doing front presses or military presses, you're working more on just your front head of your delts when you're working out. Then when you get to use dumbbells, you get more freedom of motion to work, each arm individually, plus you can rotate the arms in different ways. We can get a different feel on the deltoid, working the side and also the front.
One of the things you run into is shoulders. Some people start to get a sharp pain inside their shoulder. And they say, gee, I can't work my shoulders anymore. What you may want to try and do is switch to dumbbells and just slightly change the biomechanics of how you're lifting and moving the weight up and down. And you may find that angle that'll work for you that will still allow you to train your shoulders very effectively.
Dumbbell presses allow you to work each side of the body independently, so that each side is forced to work with full intensity. The action of the deltoids is actually a rotary one. That is, they lift the arm in a semicircular arc, pivoting from the shoulder joint rather than straight up and down. This is why you need to use a fairly wide grip when doing a barbell press. Otherwise, the deltoids aren't able to produce the rotary motion for which they're designed. But you don't have this problem doing dumbbell presses. As you do the exercise, think of lifting the dumbbells in a slight arc on the way up and lowering them through the same arc on the way down. This ensures that you will be utilizing the rotary action of the deltoids and keeping the shoulders fully involved in the lift, rather than allowing the triceps to supply too much of the effort. As with any dumbbell movement, for maximum safety and effectiveness, take extra care to concentrate on controlling and balancing the weights throughout the entire range of motion of the exercise. Behind the neck presses are a very strict form of barbell press. When you do this movement seated on a bench, there's almost no way you can cheat or recruit extraneous muscles to help with the lift. So you should rely on strict technique and form doing this movement, rather than trying to use it as a mass and strength exercise. The behind the neck press is very popular with a great many bodybuilders, and it can be very beneficial to the development of your deltoids. However, rotating the shoulders to the rear like this puts them under a lot of additional stress. So be sure not to use too much weight in this movement when you first begin doing it. And if behind the neck presses cause you any shoulder pain, you should consider substituting some other exercise in your shoulder training program.
I prefer doing behind the neck presses, but I've had a lot of problems with behind the neck presses where I've had shoulder injuries, also tendonitis. So it is a type of exercise that you have to watch doing, because a lot of people have problems with that because you're such in an awkward position with the elbows back that it does put a lot of stress on the shoulder joint itself. But it is a really good exercise for, hitting the deltoids.
Doing shoulder presses using a Smith machine gives you the advantage of lifting directly against the force of gravity, which is the best way to stimulate maximum muscular development while not having to control and balance the weight as you would using a barbell. The Smith machine allows for very strict technique. It's particularly good for extending your range of motion dropping the weight down lower than you would with a barbell, or doing partial reps, working with a shorter range than you would using a free weight. With the Smith machine, you can do military presses or behind-the-neck presses with equal facility. In fact, it's particularly effective for behind-the-neck presses because having the weight fixed in vertical tracks reduces the stress on the shoulder joint and therefore reduces the chance of injury to the deltoids. Smith machine presses are not, by and large, a substitute for barbell presses, but they make an excellent alternative. In most well-equipped gyms, you'll have a number of choices among machines designed for doing shoulder presses. They work the shoulders using a variety of different kinds of resistance and at a variety of different angles. As a rule, machines are most useful for doing strict full range of motion movements, using moderately light weights and keeping your repetitions relatively high. With shoulder training in particular, machines can be very useful if you're trying to work around an injury, because many machines will stabilize the shoulder joint just enough to allow you to do deltoid exercises, when doing the same movements with free weights would not be advisable. Dumbbell laterals are a one-joint isolation exercise in which the deltoids work directly through the rotary range of motion they were designed for. To train the side deltoids, you need to lift the weights directly out to each side, with your arms almost fully extended. You should feel the rotation of the shoulder joint with the weights moving in an arc rather than being lifted upward in a straight line. As you lift, concentrate on keeping the palms face down toward the floor. In fact, if you pronate your wrist slightly, that is, turn your hand so that your thumbs move downward, almost like pouring water from a kettle, you'll be able to isolate the side delts that much more specifically. Doing dumbbell laterals in a seated position, as demonstrated here, keeps the exercise particularly strict. However, many bodybuilders prefer to do standing dumbbell laterals. This is fine as long as you don't allow your upper body to sway too much so that you cheat the weight up and not work your shoulders hard enough. Either way, concentrate on the motion of the deltoids and in keeping the exercise as strict and technically correct as possible.
I think as long as you can come up on the side lateral and really stress the side delt by tensing it as hard as you can still get, good development on the side head. You can cheat slightly, but when you come up, you have to really tense the side head. So what you have to do, very important in doing a side lateral, is keeping your thumbs facing slightly down on an angle with your pinkies facing slightly up. And as you look into the mirror, make sure that your biceps are parallel into the mirror with your elbows slightly on an angle up. And that would put a lot of stress more on the medial head.
One-arm dumbbell laterals are done using the same form as regular dumbbell laterals, except that you work only one side of the body at a time. The advantage of this is extra isolation and the ability to concentrate on making each head of the deltoid group work to its maximum ability in every set. Cable laterals are an even stricter form of lateral exercise. Pulling against a cable, you can generate an even, continuous tension throughout the entire range of motion of the exercise. And cheating is much more difficult when you're using cables rather than free weights. The technique is the same. Keep your arms fairly straight, palm facing the floor, and pronate the wrist slightly on the way up to create maximum contraction in the deltoids. There are actually a number of ways of doing cable laterals. The cable can cross in front of you or behind you, or you can position yourself to the side of the pulley and lift your arm straight up to the side. But with all cable laterals, concentrate on feeling a continuous, even movement throughout the range of motion of the exercise, and achieving a total peak contraction at the top of the exercise to develop maximum stimulation of the deltoid muscles.
Usually, say 6 to 8 weeks before a show, I use more of the cable movements. Cable movements would put even more of that carved look into the delt, more of that, we call like those scratches that you have in the deltoid muscle that you would get right before a competition. It's not something that you would do for mass, but it's something you would do to give you more of that look, of that definition on the delt, where you can see each individual muscle strand on the deltoid.
Machine laterals work the deltoids with the resistance mechanism rotating to correspond to the rotational action of the shoulder joint itself. Again, this is not a mass builder, but best for moderate weight, relatively high rep or very high rep pumping sets at the end of your shoulder workout. Using a lateral machine, concentrate on feeling continuous tension in the shoulder, working through a full range of motion and getting a full peak contraction at the top. Front raises are designed to work the front head of the deltoids, just as laterals work the side head. The technique is much the same. You raise the weight in a wide arc, keeping the arm fairly straight and palm turned down toward the floor. You come up slightly higher than shoulder height. Hold for a moment, then lower the weight under control back to the starting position. One mistake that's frequently made with front raises is lifting the weight too far out to the side. You don't actually want to lift it straight up from the shoulder. Instead, bring the dumbbell in slightly toward the center line of your body until you feel the front head of the deltoid doing most of the work. Of course, you'll see a lot of individual variations in front raises and other exercises as well. The key to exercising effectively in cases like this is to ask yourself whether you feel the target muscle is working hard enough and in sufficient isolation during the movement. If you do, fine. If not, perhaps you ought to re-examine your training technique. Upright rows involve the action of the front deltoids as they lift the bar up in front of you. Stand upright, holding a bar at arm's length in front of you with an overhand grip, hands about shoulder width apart. Lift the bar straight up along the line of your body to about shoulder height. Hold for a moment at the top, then lower the weight under control back to the starting position. This isn't an exercise where you want to use a great deal of weight. Instead, try to do the movement using very strict technique, lifting and lowering the bar under full control at all times. Bent over laterals are a lateral movement for the rear head of the deltoid. However, targeting the rear delts can be more difficult than trying to isolate and train the other deltoid heads. Therefore, a few technical tips are in order. When you bend over, stay bent over. Don't lift up as you raise the weights. And instead of lifting the dumbbell straight out to each side, bring them slightly forward during the movement, so they end up even with your head at the top rather than your shoulders. And as you lift, pronate your wrists. That is, turn your thumbs down fairly decisively to further involve the posterior head of the deltoids. Some bodybuilders prefer doing bent-over laterals seated. Others standing. Seated is somewhat stricter, but the pressure on your diaphragm makes breathing more difficult. And doing the exercise in a standing position gives you a better choice of angles. But either method works, so choose the one that feels best to you. Bent-over cable laterals are done very much like bent-over dumbbell laterals. As you bend over and raise your arms to the side, the rear head of the deltoids is called upon to do most of the work in the lift. As with any other bodybuilding exercise, you'll make the fastest progress by learning to feel exactly which muscles are involved in any movement you're doing, and make whatever adjustments to form or technique are necessary to focus the maximum training intensity on the muscles you're trying to develop.
The trapezius muscles lift the entire shoulder girdle. This is why they call the basic trap exercise the shrug. The traps can be worked either as part of the shoulder workout, as shown next, or as part of the back routine.
The shrug movement is one of the simplest in bodybuilding. The basic function of the trapezius muscle is to lift the entire shoulder girdle. So to train traps, you simply take hold of a barbell, shrug your shoulders up toward your ears, hold the position of full contraction for a moment, then lower the weight back to the starting position. Some bodybuilders have been known to neglect traps when they first start training. However, they generally run into trouble later on when they're forced to do trapezius training on a priority basis to try and catch up. Sometimes they never do. However, the easiest way to avoid this problem is to include shrugs as part of your overall training program right from your very first workout. One alternative to barbell shrugs is to do shrugs using dumbbells for resistance. Using a different kind of weight really makes little difference to the exercise. The shrugging movement is so simple that it really doesn't matter what kind of weight you use. Using dumbbells may be more convenient if you have a rack of heavy dumbbells right in front of you to choose from. However, as you get stronger in this exercise, you may find you're using such heavy poundages that it's a lot easier to do the movement with a barbell using wrist straps than it is a pair of dumbbells. Again, this is a matter of personal preference and individual choice. Shrugs are so simple, it's hard to do them incorrectly. Cables are a highly versatile type of exercise equipment. In fact, cables were one of the first sophisticated training devices developed for the modern gym. Gravity works up and down, but using a cable and pulleys, you can change the angle of resistance from vertical to horizontal or anywhere in between. By substituting a short handle attached to a cable for a barbell, you can use cables to do shrugging movements as demonstrated here. The shrugs are done the same as with free weights. You pull your shoulders up as far as possible to your ears, then slowly release and lower them again, resisting the pull of the weight all the way down. Incidentally, you can also do shrugs on a variety of machines. For example, the bench press station on universal type training equipment generally provides handles at just about the right height to allow you to take hold of them and do shrugging exercises. In any event, remember that the type of equipment you use in an exercise is generally less important than how that movement feels, or rather, how you can make it feel. Shoulder routine number 1. Behind the neck barbell press. 4 sets of 10 reps. Dumbbell or machine laterals. 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps. Front dumbbell raises. 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps. Bent over laterals. 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps. Barbell shrugs. 4 sets of 10 reps.
One of the things is that you have to work proper technique. And I wasn't using the proper technique exactly, so I was hitting a lot more of my front delts instead of my side or medial delts. So then I had to really concentrate on the side lateral movements, doing the movement correctly, so that I could really get that wideness on the medial head, so that when you're on stage, you have that appearance of looking a lot wider. With that wider appearance, you'll make your waist look smaller and look more symmetrical.
Shoulder routine number 2. Seated dumbbell press. 4 sets of 10 reps. One-arm cable or dumbbell laterals. 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps. Upright rows. 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps. Bent over cable laterals. 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps. Dumbbell or cable shrugs. 4 sets of 10 reps.
Now go for it. The champions told you exactly what to do to develop your legs and your shoulders. Put it to work right away. In the next tape, you're going to learn to put the final details to your bodybuilding program. You now know how to develop mass and power and size into your total body. However, you have to detail it and perfect it by developing your calves, forearms, and midsection. These 3 parts have to be highly and fully developed in order to develop a perfect shaped body.
We all start skinny or fat or somewhere in between, but basically we don't like the way that we look now. But then you have the choice to do something about it.
Start it and finish it. Do it on a regular basis.
Just go out and do it.
This tape is very important because bodybuilders ignore the development of their calves and their forearms, and because of that, they don't develop a perfectly proportioned body. Forearms add power and size to your arms and are very important in a handshake and creating a sense of power. Also, your calves, if not developed, really distort the development of your legs and their appearance. So these two body parts are very important to develop. And also, what sets off your body is your midsection, a hard, taut, tight, muscular waistline. The champions will be telling you exactly how to accomplish these goals.
The calf consists of two muscles, one inner and the other outer. The outer muscle, the gastrocnemius, originates about the knee. The inner muscle, the soleus, originates below the knee. At the lower end, their tendons come together to form the Achilles tendon. The primary action of the calf muscles is to flex the foot, that is, to point the toe. Calves are among the most difficult muscles in the body to develop. For most of us, the calf muscles don't grow easily. In addition, many people have short calf muscles. A greater proportion of their overall calf length is tendon rather than muscle belly. The trouble many bodybuilders have in developing their calves is ineffective training methods. But if you follow the proper basic techniques for calf training, you give yourself the best possible chance to develop your calves to their genetic potential.
The gastrocnemius, the outer head of the calf, flexes the foot and the leg and supinates the foot. The soleus, the inner head of the calf, flexes the foot.
If you want maximum calf development, it's better not to work these muscles wearing modern athletic shoes. They act like springs on your feet, and the muscles don't do enough of the work. However, if you have very responsive calves, or if it's simply inconvenient, you can wear athletic shoes. But you'll get better results in your calf training if you wear non-supportive foot gear like slippers, moccasins, or even working barefoot.
We'll be describing the principal exercises of these muscles in a moment, but some techniques apply to all. In performing any gastrocnemius movement, the knees must remain locked throughout the entire range of motion. As we've learned, the gastrocnemius attaches above the knee, and keeping the legs straight stretches this muscle to the maximum. This gives you a more complete contraction. When you do any kind of calf raise, come up forward onto the big toe rather than letting your foot roll over toward the other four toes. This is a technique that's always been advocated by the great champion Steve Reeves. Raising up on the big toe allows you to achieve a total peak contraction of the calf muscles. You'll lose contraction if you let your ankle flex and let the foot roll over to the side. Work through as full a range of motion as possible, going all the way down and stopping to stretch the calves fully at the bottom. Then flex the foot and go up as high as you can on your toes. Partial range movements aren't as effective in calf training. In normal walking and running, the calves in a partial range activity sustain your entire body weight for extended periods of time. Therefore, partial range calf exercises are not as likely to add significant calf development. After each set of a gastrocnemius exercise, follow this procedure to maximize the results. Hold on to a bench or machine for support. Raise yourself up until you're standing on your toes on point like a ballet dancer. This way, you're doing calf raises against only your body as resistance. There are no additional weights. The result will be total stimulation of your calf muscles.
The gastrocnemius, or outer head of the calves, attaches above the knee. You develop these muscles most effectively by doing your calf raises in a standing position, with your legs straight and knees locked out. This stretched position anchors the attachments of the gastrocnemius firmly at both ends and gives you the ability to achieve a maximum contraction of the muscle fibers involved. Many bodybuilders allow themselves to bend their knees at the start of the lift and then straighten them as they raise up on their toes. However, bending your knees lowers the intensity of the gastrocnemius contraction because it allows the tension on the muscle to slacken at the beginning of the exercise. Also, bending the knees involves the thigh muscles in the effort, which further interferes with getting maximum effort from the calf muscles. To maximize your calf training intensity, try doing calf raises without wearing modern athletic shoes. Wear less supportive footwear, such as slippers or moccasins, or wear no shoes at all. This way, the calves really have to do all the work with no help from modern technology. For most of us, calves are difficult to develop, which makes achieving maximum intensity in calf training especially important. So concentrate on locking out the knees, dropping your heels down until you feel a full stretch in your calves and a stretch in your hamstrings as well. Then coming up onto your toes. Feel your weight going forward onto the big toe rather than letting your foot flex to the side. At the top position, hold a moment to get the maximum peak contraction possible. Between sets, try stretching your calf muscles gently, which will make it easier for you to work through the fullest range of motion possible during your next set.
Some athletes like to train their calves every day, and they train with very, very, very heavy weight. And what can happen after a while is if they don't stretch out that muscle and take it through the full range of motion coming up and down during their calf training, they may have a tendency to get a spasm in the gastroc or in their calf muscle itself. This is quite painful. So it's very important with the calf to always warm up and cool down and slowly and easily, not ballistically, stretch that muscle till it relaxes again.
To be very complete, you have to have calves, which in those days, the calf wasn't as important. Everybody worried about their upper body. And the legs, they came fine, but now, without legs, you can't go anywhere.
The soleus muscle of the calves lies beneath the larger gastrocnemius and attaches below the knee. When you do calf raises with your knees bent, the gastrocnemius is relaxed and the soleus is forced to do most of the work. So the basic exercise for working the soleus muscle is the seated calf raise. As with standing calf raises, you need to work your soleus with a strict, controlled movement. Lower the weight, stretching your calves to a maximum. Pause at the bottom, don't bounce the weight up, come up forward onto your big toe, and avoid letting your foot flex to the side. At the top of the movement, try to hold for a moment to achieve a total peak contraction of the soleus muscles. Incidentally, many bodybuilders tend to neglect soleus training in favor of developing the larger and more obvious gastrocnemius. However, a lot of heavy lifting involves movements where your legs are bent, squats, leg presses, and deadlifts, for example. Doing these exercises, your gastrocnemius will be less involved than the soleus. So it's important to concentrate on sets of seated calf raises just as much as those in which your knee is locked out straight. Donkey calf raises are standing calf raises done in a bent over position so that your hamstrings are stretched to the maximum and remain stretched throughout the exercise. Stretching the gastrocnemius, as we've seen, gives you a more intense contraction of these muscles during the movement. When you stretch your hamstrings by bending forward from the waist, even more tension is put on the gastrocnemius muscles, which increases the intensity of your calf raises that much more. In fact, there are many old-timers in the sport who feel that donkey calf raises are the most effective calf movement there is, and that more modern bodybuilders would have better calves if they included more donkey raises in their calf training program. Donkey calf raises can be done on a machine, but there's a more traditional way of doing this exercise as well. Instead of a machine, you have another bodybuilder sit on your lower back, or really across the back of your hips. Looking at this exercise, it's easy to see how it got its name. It does resemble somebody riding a burro or donkey. Many bodybuilders prefer this method because having somebody sit on you like this gives you more feel than lifting against the dead weight of a machine.
My calves are genetically shaped, and also the thickness and the separation in them makes them stand out beyond other body parts that I have.
The calf routine. Standing calf raises. 4 to 5 sets of 15 to 20 reps. And/or doggy calf raises. 4 to 5 sets of 15 to 20 reps. Seated calf raises. 4 to 5 sets of 15 to 20 reps.
You can train your calves before your workout or after your workout, but it's very important not to train your calves on the same day that you're doing your quad work. If you do calves before your quads, it becomes a weak link, and you lose a lot of your stability when you're training your quads, especially like in a movement like squat or a hack squat or a leg press.
Have a good diamond-shaped calf is very important.
The abdominal muscles originate at the bottom of the rib cage and attach to the pelvis. In addition to helping stabilize the torso, the abs have a basic function. They draw the rib cage and pelvis together in a crunching, short range of motion movement.
The rectus abdominis extends the whole length of the ventral aspect of the abdomen. It flexes the vertebral column, drawing the sternum toward the pubis. The external obliques bends the vertebral column laterally and rotates it.
There are a number of commonly performed exercises for the abdominals that are not as effective as people think. Take regular sit-ups, for example. In sit-ups, you keep the upper body more or less rigid and raise the entire torso. And this way, the abs are only acting as stabilizers and are not working through a full range of motion. The only true training of the abdominals is when your rib cage and pelvis are drawn together. The spine flexes rather than staying rigid, as in the sit-up.
The same thing is true of standard leg raises. Try this experiment. Stand up and grab hold of something for support. Put one hand on your abs and raise one leg. You won't feel the abdominals working at all because they attach to the pelvis, not to the leg. As in the case of sit-ups, when you lie on your back and do leg raises, the abs work primarily as torso stabilizers. The muscles you're really working in both leg raises and traditional sit-ups are the iliopsoas or hip flexors.
Because iliopsoas muscles are involved in movements like sit-ups and leg raises, some people complain that these movements hurt their lower backs. The iliopsoas help balance the torso back to front, but the correctly done abdominal exercises work the abs directly and are the most important exercises used in therapy to recover from lower back problems.
So what is correct abdominal training? Any exercise that works the abs directly will involve a crunching movement. In crunching, either the spine flexes and the rib cage moves towards the pelvis, or the pelvis moves towards the spine, or both move together. Correctly done, the abdominal movements have a very short range of motion. The spine doesn't flex very far. Proper technique involves fairly slow and deliberate movements with no quick pumping efforts. The muscles are crunched together and held in that position a moment for peak contraction. The crunch is then slowly released under full control back to the starting position.
The primary action of the abdominal muscles is really very simple. As they contract, they draw the rib cage and pelvis together. The range of motion of this movement is very short. All it is a kind of a crunch. You don't lift or derrick your torso up in the air. That action is a function of the hip flexors, not the abs. Your upper body rolls forward rather than sitting up. Crunches can be done lying on the floor, a bench, or on a slant board. You can do crunches with your legs lying across a bench, or knees bent with your feet flat on the floor. As long as you feel the crunching of the abs during the movement, it doesn't really matter. Some bodybuilders hold their knees in the air, but this isn't necessary. Lifting the legs is another function of the hip flexors, and working these muscles has nothing to do with abdominal development. Crunches should be performed in a deliberate, controlled manner. The harder you contract the abdominals during the movement, the more you're going to get out of the exercise. So when you do your crunches, concentrate on holding at the top for a maximum peak contraction, then lowering your upper body slowly back to the starting position under full control. With reverse crunches, instead of crunching the rib cage down toward the pelvis, you crunch the pelvis up toward the rib cage. However, the goal of the exercise is still to achieve the same thing as with crunches, a complete peak contraction of the abdominal muscles. Reverse crunches are not the same as leg raises. With leg raises, the pelvis stays flat on the bench and your legs are raised and lowered using the iliopsoas or hip flexor muscles. With reverse crunches, the entire pelvis is drawn up toward the rib cage and the legs simply provide extra resistance for your abs to work against. The extra weight of the legs makes reverse crunches more difficult than regular crunches, especially for bodybuilders with massive leg development. However, if you want to make this exercise even more intense, try doing it lying on a slant board. Bodybuilders do a number of variations of this movement. However, keep in mind that to do this exercise effectively, you must make sure you squeeze the pelvis up toward the rib cage and crunch the abdominals together. The scissors crunch is a medium intensity abdominal exercise that allows you to crunch your rib cage down toward your pelvis and your pelvis up toward your rib cage at the same time. Concentrate in this exercise on continuous tension, full range of motion, and the full contraction at the top of the movement. Because you're not working against a lot of resistance, you can try going for higher reps and a really good burn. Crunches done in a vertical hanging position are the most difficult of all. Here you have the full weight of your lower body acting as resistance as you work to crunch your pelvis up toward your rib cage as high as possible. Hanging reverse crunches can be done using straps as shown here or on a bench designed to allow you to rest your weight on your forearms as you do the exercise. Either way, it's important to concentrate on bringing your pelvis up rather than just lifting your knees and legs. As with any crunch exercise, the pelvis and rib cage have to squeeze together in order to fully involve the abdominal muscles. Lifting and lowering the legs themselves does little to help with abdominal development. Twisting to the side as you do your hanging reverse crunches hits the abdominals from different angles and also allows you to work the obliques at the side of the lower torso. You can do a crunching movement holding onto a cable as demonstrated here, or kneeling on the floor holding onto a rope attached to an overhead pulley. Remember that for most purposes, a crunch is a crunch, no matter what variation you do or what kind of equipment you use. It's the crunching feeling you get as you contract your abdominal muscles and bring your rib cage and pelvis together that makes any kind of ab exercise most effective.
One of the reasons why it's so important to wait till after you're done training your other muscle groups before you start to train abdominals, because the abdominals are needed as a power base for the rest of your movements. If the abdominals are weak, you may leave yourself open to injury.
The abdominal routine.
In setting up an abdominal workout routine, there are special considerations. When you do heavy training in the gym, you generally give your abs a strenuous workout as well. So the amount of ab training you do on any given day depends a lot on what kind of workout you've just been through. For example, if you've done a lot of heavy squats and leg presses, you'll find your abs are probably already tired and don't need that much work.
3 to 5 sets of 2 of the abdominal exercises, such as crunches and reverse crunches. Now that would be a reasonable workout. You could do more if you felt particularly strong that day. Really, a lot depends on how hard you crunch the muscles at the top of the exercise. By crunching harder and holding this peak contraction longer, you're going to significantly increase the intensity because you fatigue the ab muscle a lot more quickly than if you go from full extension to full contraction without putting in that extra effort. You should plan to do about 20 repetitions per set, less if you include full intense peak contractions. An exercise like the hanging reverse crunch is so demanding that many competitive bodybuilders with their massive leg development can hardly do them at all. Including these in your workout means your overall volume of ab training will be less, even though the intensity may be even greater.
The abdominals are just like any other muscle. I think that they have to be worked, in order to get the right look.
Would you work them daily, or would you work them at 2 or 3 times a week, or how would you work the stomach?
Again, I think that they're like other muscles. If you work them daily, you're going to overtrain them. And this might be okay if you have an exceptional amount of muscle in the stomach or the obliques and you want to burn some of that off, then you can overtrain it. But I believe that training abdominals more than 2 or 3 times a week is a mistake.
But what you're really saying then is that if you are carrying excess, you're better off watching the diet than doing extra stomach work.
Definitely. They're two mutually exclusive things.
Crunches are scissor crunches. 3 to 5 sets of 15 to 25 reps. Reverse crunches, slant board reverse crunches, or hanging reverse crunches. 3 to 5 sets of 15 to 25 reps.
There's nothing like a crunch to train the abdominals.